Hello folks, it is Tuesday, April 28th, last Tuesday of the month, and I'm tickled to be with you, here from Hawaii, at least in my Hawaiian shirt. And we've got some delightful questions for this evening. So we'll begin with them. First, my husband criticizes me all the time, or at least it seems like he does. So that I feel defensive around him all the time. I'm jumpy around him. I don't even want to be around him. First, I think it's important to understand what's going on with you generally. Then we can talk about what you could do in the short term. But it's always important to understand what's going on generally, or short-term solutions just really don't seem to help. So, your husband might actually be critical, but we're not going to change him. So, the most important thing is you're feeling defensive. And that's a choice. There are always going to be people around us who are going to be critical, judgmental, be unkind, be angry, be in some way disruptive, not be contributing to the peace in our lives. And we get to choose how we deal with those people. The world believes differently. The world believes that when people are unkind to us and judgmental and critical, then they take our peace from us. They make us angry. They make us afraid. And that's just really not the case. The reason that you become defensive, or the phrase I feel defensive, I'm jumpy around him, is that you need his approval. You need him specifically to care about you. Things really begin to change for us when we understand that what we need is to just feel unconditionally loved by anybody. That's what we need, is love. It doesn't have to come from any particular person. Now, the world teaches us differently. The world teaches us that what we need is happiness as delivered by our mother, our father, a lover, the handsome prince as he rides in on his white horse, the sleeping princess, somebody. The beautiful girl holding the beer in the commercial, whoever. And that's just not true. We just need to feel unconditionally loved. And if you could understand that, then you wouldn't feel so demanding that your husband be accepting of you in any particular moment. Then, when he's critical of you, well, so what? Then his being critical is all about him. It's not about you. When he's critical and snotty toward you, he's not really talking about you. He's talking about his lack of unconditional love. Every time he says something to you about you, and it's understandable because he almost certainly uses the word you. He says you, and then he describes some failure. He describes something you didn't do, something you did wrong. Whenever people come at us saying you, understandably, we think it's about us. And almost without exception, it's not. They're describing their inability to love us. If you'd get that, you wouldn't feel jumpy at all. You'd hear him describing himself. So if you could get that, it would be just an enormous relief to you. So here you are busy trying to earn his approval. Stop that. Instead, learn to tell the truth about yourself to a wide variety of people, not just to him. Fill up with their love. Then when he comes at you being critical, well, you just really wouldn't care. Now, in the short term, what can you do? when he comes at you critical about whatever, you can talk to him now, not feeling a need for his approval, and talk to him about how you're willing to engage him when he does that. Now, let me encourage you that this isn't going to work if you're trying to earn his approval. If you do what I'm suggesting here and you still have a need for his conditional approval, what I'm suggesting here will not work. It will just be a technique or a trick and you'll fail. So let's say that, for example, he's criticizing, we got to come up with something specific. He criticizes the way you cook, for example. You could tell him that if he has some preferences about a particular way that he would like you to cook sausage or cake or bread or whatever, you're certainly willing to hear that. You'll make note of it. You'll try to remember it. No problem. Once. So in other words, if he has a preference about the way you cook bread, not a problem. He certainly can tell you about that. One time. But you're not stupid. If he tells you once, you've got it. If he tells you twice, that's just nagging. And tell him you don't really want to hear it more than once. So if he then comes in, for example, while you're cooking, and he goes to, and he's hanging around the stove, and he's saying, no, don't do that, don't do that, and you've already heard that, then you turn to him and you say, we've already had this discussion. I already know how you want that cooked, and so for you to continue is just, now you can't be angry when you say this. You say for you to continue saying it is just boring. Just boring. I already know what your preference is, and I'm choosing to cook it this way. So you now have a choice. You can allow me to cook it my way and leave the kitchen, or you can do the cooking. Take your pick. In the same way that I recommend to people when they're driving and their partner, be it the husband or the wife, it's irrelevant, makes constant comments about how they drive. I suggest that they actually pull over, pull into a parking lot, stop, look at their partner and say, what would you like to do here? Would you like to be quiet while I drive? That's choice number one. Or would you like to drive? Because those are the only two choices you have. Now notice, you're not telling them what to do. You're not telling your husband to shut up. You're just telling him he has two choices. See? You're not telling him to stop criticizing you. No, not at all. But he has two choices here. He can stop criticizing the thing that you're doing, or he can do it. But to keep it up, the reason he keeps it up is because you let him. He does it only because he's empty and alone, and he gets a feeling of power from doing it. And you let him do it. So to continue in this really sick form of interaction is kind of crazy and only detracts from any possibility that you're ever going to have a loving interaction. At some point, somebody has to stop it. And that doesn't mean stop him. Somebody has to stop participating in it. And that's going to be you. You have to say, I refuse to participate in this. I'm not going to sit here and listen to this. Now that doesn't mean you do it like most people do, which is to stand up and say, I refuse to be criticized in this way. I'm going to stand up for myself. No, that's, kind of a combination of, victimhood and attacking. No, you just say you have two choices. I've heard this before. I know your position. And now, which do you choose to do? You're leaving it entirely up to him. But don't keep doing it. It's unloving. It's not healthy. Here's somebody who says, how do you teach a 3-year-old to listen? Impossible. You just stick a gag in their mouth, wrap it up tightly, and stick them in the closet. No, it's not true. And it's not impossible. I'm just teasing you. The long-term answer is read the entire Real Love and Parenting book, and it'll tell you a lot about how you get a 3-year-old to listen. But the short-term answer is you love and teach them over and over again. Many parents say to me, I can't get my 3-year-old to listen. And what they're really saying is, I don't know how to be consistent with my 3-year-old. And what it means is that the 3-year-old is running the adult. So the 3-year-old is doing whatever the 3-year-old wants, and the parent is going, oh, what do I do? Oh, there's lots that you can do. When you speak and tell a 3-year-old what to do, and then the 3-year-old doesn't do it, you have to keep going until the 3-year-old does what you told him to do. You can't quit. You can't stop. What most parents do is they tell the 3-year-old to do something, and then when the 3-year-old doesn't do it, ignores them, throws a little temper tantrum, whatever, then the adult gives up. Oh, do you see what just happened? The 3-year-old just trained, just like a dog. The 3-year-old just trained, as in the adult is the dog. The 3-year-old just trained the adult to be obedient to the 3-year-old. And the 3-year-old's going, and then the 3-year-old's laughing his head off. He just trained the adult to go away. And the adult goes, what just happened here? So the adult gives up, goes away, and the 3-year-old is just roaring, laughing his head off, going, I can do anything I want to do. Or the 3-year-old makes it sufficiently frustrating that the adult, gives up and goes, well, or the adult bribes the 3-year-old, and now the 3-year-old not only doesn't have to do what he wants to do, he's also gotten a present or a toy or candy or terrible. So when you speak to a 3-year-old and you say, come here, or go there, or pick up your toys, or whatever it is, and the child doesn't immediately respond, like right now, then you go to the 3-year-old and you either touch the child, whatever it takes to completely get the 3-year-old's attention. You look into the 3-year-old's eyes, or you do whatever it takes to stop whatever. If they're watching television, you turn it off. If they're playing with a toy, you pick up the toy. Whatever it takes until you have the 3-year-old look you in the eye and say, look at me. What did I say? Well, you told me to come to dinner. Then why are you not there? What do we do in this household? When I tell you to do something, when do you do it? Not do we do it? Oh, when do we do it? Until the child says back to you. You don't always be delivering a lecture. The child has to participate in this. When do we do it? Until the child can say back to you, we do it right now. And this isn't dictatorial. You explain to the child, we do it immediately because it contributes to the overall function and happiness of the family. Otherwise, we can't get stuff done. We can't get to the store. We can't get to school. Mom can't get to work. We can't get stuff done if the 3-year-old can just go, well, I'll do stuff when I feel like it. No. And you explain to the 3-year-old, it works just like that for you at work and every place else. When the people who are in authority say this is what needs to happen, you don't do it when you feel like it. You have to do it immediately because it contributes to the overall function of the way things get done quickly, better. Things work better. That's what you say. For a 3-year-old, keep the language simple. Because things work better. That's why. Not because mommy's bigger. No, then that just makes you a bully. No, things work better when we do what mom says immediately. Then if the child says, no, You say, okay, well, you can say no. You say, but things don't work well when we say no. For example, if mom decides to drive the car fast, then mom gets a speeding ticket. If mom breaks the law, mom ends up in jail. Or dad, or whoever it is. When we make the wrong choice, we have to pay a price. Adults do too. And so do children. So, if you don't want to come to the dinner table right now, okay, no problem. Then if the child's watching television, then you say, then not only do we turn off the television, but you won't watch television for the rest of the day. Now, you have to be careful. With 3-year-olds, you can't say, you can't watch television for the rest of your life. Lighten up. You can't even say for the rest of the week. That's way too long for a 3-year-old. That kind of penalty is just, seems like a life sentence. So, you can't watch for the rest of the day. If they keep being snotty and bratty, then what you do is you keep upping the price. So you say, okay, if you'd like, then I guess we can go to bed early. Then we can take away your computer privileges or whatever else it is that the child enjoys. If you can't get to the dinner table on time, then I guess you can lose your dessert privileges. Or you know what the child likes. You get the point. There's a price to be paid. And the more you want to keep this kind of behavior up, the bigger the price becomes. Kids get that. And you have to be utterly consistent. Consistent like gravity. This is real important. I mean, every single time that you jump off a height, you can count on gravity. Children need to understand that every single time they break a rule, there's a price to be paid. They learn from that. They learn to make right choices more often. And that's how you teach a 3-year-old to listen. It's really pretty easy. Here's somebody who says, my boss is a man I had previously known from church. So we had been friends to a certain extent. As friends, I had hugged him a couple of times when I had greeted him at church. And once he told me about some personal problems in his family, and so I had reached out and just touched his hand as a gesture of comfort, as a friend. Then a month ago, he hired me to work for him, and almost immediately he began touching me in different ways. He began coming up behind me at my workstation and touching me on my shoulder, not in a brief, friendly way, but caressing my shoulder and arm. Then he'd sit next to me and touch my knee. What amazed me was that I did not do anything about it. It's like I just froze, like I was a deer in the headlights. I had always heard about bosses doing stuff like this to women in the workplace, and I was positive that I would never put up with this for a minute. But there I was, doing nothing, and I couldn't believe it. Then, just a couple of days ago, he was talking to me, and suddenly he leaned forward to kiss me on the lips. Only at the last possible second did I suddenly regain my brains to turn away, and he kissed my cheek. I cannot believe that it's gotten to this point, all in just 2 or 3 short weeks. Now, what do I do? It is amazing the things we get into. So, first, you're sounding like you're kind of blaming yourself, which is understandable. Because like you said, you thought, well, of course I'll be smarter than this. And here you are in the middle of it. So you can finally understand, can't you, how people get themselves in situations where they end up being, victims of sexual abuse in the workplace. It suddenly makes sense to you, doesn't it? So get over the blaming. there are a couple of elements going on here. Well, there's lots of elements going on, but one is you were surprised. I mean, here's this guy that you thought was your friend, and it's like, boom, out of nowhere, this guy acts in a way that you just never dreamed he'd act. And so you were completely unprepared for it. The other part is this business of authority. I mean, when you're at work, this guy is giving you a livelihood. You figure that you owe him a certain amount of respect. And all of a sudden, he's behaving in ways that are like, you're kidding me. And you don't want to tell somebody who's in a position of authority to go stick his head in a toilet. And so you're thinking, so how do I handle this in a tactful way and make this stop happening and not lose my job? It really is a completely unfair situation for any employer to put their employee in. It was frightening. So you're surprised and frightened. And you just didn't know what to do. So, don't do too much blaming here. It was a lot. But now you've regained your senses, and you really do have to talk to this guy, obviously, which is why you're writing here. So, you need to come up with some sort of tactful conversation to have with this guy. And the better prepared you are for it, the better you'll do in it. So in the first place, you do not wait until he does something again. If you confront him right while he's doing something, like touching you, this is going to go badly. If he's touching you and you say, I really hate that, he's going to defend himself, and he's going to be so busy defending himself, you're not going to get anything across. So you need to set up a time where you can talk to this guy, where he's not going to be so frightened by what he will perceive as an attack of him. So set up a time to talk to him where you have some time, where you have a few minutes, and where it won't be about the immediate event. And do it, if you can, when there's going to be somebody else in the office and the two of you are not all by yourselves, if that's possible. And then tell him, look, I like my job. I like working with you. I like working for you. I would like to stay here working, if possible. It depends on how he behaves, whether that continues. And then you say, but I've made a mistake here that I need to tell you about. Now, look how utterly disarming that is. If you start off the conversation with, you've really screwed up, conversations pretty much go downhill from there. So you say, look, I've made a mistake that I need to tell you about. In my life, physical touching, is an intimate experience. It's an intimate experience that I share with my family, my mother, my father, my siblings, partners, very close friends, and with certain other people that I invite to do that. And, sometimes, like in public displays of affection, at church, just a brief, hug, kind of a hello, sort of thing. And what happened was, when I first came here, you touched me in ways that were more intimate than I had ever anticipated were going to happen. And because it happened here at work, and because you were my boss, I was surprised. And I felt intimidated because of our relationship, with my being an employee and your being an employer. And I allowed it. Because I felt intimidated, I allowed it to happen. And because I allowed it, that must have confused you. You must have thought that it was okay with me. And it was not okay. It was not all right. But because I didn't stop you, how could you have assumed anything but that it was? So that was my mistake, to confuse you and allow you to believe that it was all right. And so I'm just here to tell you, my bad, my mistake to confuse you like that, but I'm here to correct that misimpression and to tell you that that's not all right with me. And to not blame you, but just to let you know that that kind of touching is too intimate for me in this work environment, and that it should not continue. But that I don't have any ill feelings towards you. I really blame myself for that. So I just wanted to let you know that and look forward to working with you here in the office. Now, see, no blaming, clears things up. You take complete responsibility for what you did, and then you see what happens. But there's so little blaming in that if he's offended, then you know that this may not work out. See how it goes from there. If he fires you, you have grounds to sue him for sexual harassment, and it could get horrifyingly ugly. Hopefully that won't happen. If he touches you, again, you have grounds. But hopefully, and I've been through this with other women and other men, hopefully if you're just simply clear like that, then he'll go, oh, hey, whoa, I see this really was a misunderstanding, and that he'll understand that, he screwed up, and everything can become normalized almost immediately. And I've seen that happen. So that's what I would suggest you try. And then you understand the mistake you made, and you won't make that again. New viewer. My partner and I were sitting on the couch last night, and he was hot. That's temperature hot. She's not making an assessment of his desirability. To the point of sweating. I asked him if he was okay because there was no apparent reason for him to be hot. I asked him if he wanted me to turn the AC on or the fan. I said it would be okay with me if he wanted to take his shirt off. He turned on the fan, took off his shirt while we watched a movie. I thought everything was cool, but he said later that he felt like I had been trying to fix him. The things that mystify us. I had no idea that this might be what I was doing. I thought I was showing concern for him and his happiness. How do I know when I'm being loving or when I'm fixing? So I'll give you some clues. Let's see here. You said that he was hot and there was no apparent reason for him to be hot. So look at the judgments here. He's hot, but doesn't look like there's any reason for him to be hot. Then you said, you asked him if he wanted me to turn the AC or the fan on, and does he want to take his shirt off? And then he ended up turning on the fan and took off his shirt. So here are the clues I'm going to give you. On the whole, people don't like to be told that they look tired, hot, old, fat, or unusual in any way. Almost invariably, they don't like to be told that. And if they're any of those things, if they are any of those things, and if they want them fixed, they will bring them up. So, and in addition, they don't like to be required to do something. So, they don't like to be required to take their shirt off, turn on the AC themselves, which he had to do. They don't like to be required to move, adjust themselves, change their shoes, change the color of things, comb their hair, fix something, brush the hair out of their eyes, and yet we make these observations about people and require that they make little miniature adjustments in themselves all the time. And we mean well. On the whole, we need to be quiet. Now, hang on. They don't mind being asked if they want something that requires no effort. So being told that they look a certain way, they don't like. Being asked if they would like something that is effortless is okay. So for example, would you like a drink? That's okay. Being told, gosh, you look dehydrated and thirsty. On the whole, now some people are exceptions, but on the whole, I'm just telling you, people don't like being told that they don't look good. Now, some victims actually do, but on the whole, most people don't. So you could say, look, I'm going to the kitchen, I'm going to get myself a drink. You could have said to your boyfriend, I'm going to get myself a beer, would you like one too? No problem. He'd probably love to hear that. Or you could say, hey, I'm going to get up. Would you like me to turn on the AC or the fan or anything? Or are you all right? See? No hint of an accusation there. Because you're not saying you look hot. Or you could say, look, I'm going to get up. Is the temperature all right for you? Not a problem there. I'm going to get up. Can I get you anything? Again, no problem. No judgment is involved. On the whole, people do not like to be judged as anything other than all right. That's kind of the bottom line. And without meaning to, you judged him as not being all right, and then made suggestions about things that he could do and you could do to fix him from his condition of not being all right. Sounds silly to you, but clearly it didn't to him. And I've seen this happen over and over with people. People will call a friend or a relative and they'll say, gosh, you're looking kind of tired. And you'd think that sounds compassionate. And the other person blows up. What do you mean tired? Gee whiz. People just don't like the judgments. Here's a viewer who says, my family had an Easter gathering at my mother's house. The group included my mother, my 4 adult children, 2 of my son's girlfriends, 1 family friend, and her baby, that's the family friend, and myself. My mother told me on the phone last night that she discovered we have a thief in the family. She wasn't going to tell me that, but she decided to. She said she had a bag of like $30 to $40 of quarters in her bedroom that she found missing a day after the dinner. She also said she found 2 folded dollar bills on the dresser that she doesn't know where they came from. I instantly felt awful that someone in my family could steal from my 80-year-old mother. She would have given the money to the person if they would just ask. 2 of my sons are financially strained right now, and I don't know the character of one of the girlfriends. I know my mom felt victimized, and I immediately felt like running from the conversation. I don't know what to do to lovingly address my family members with this. 1 son is using drugs. The other son is nearly homeless. But I don't believe it was either of them. But I know in their current status it could be any of them. I also don't know if mom had someone else in the house at another time that it might have been one of them. Mom said she had gotten over it, but I don't know what to say and I don't know what to do. So, again, it's about love. It's not about the $30 or $40. So, if you were to approach each of the people who were involved and say, Mom is missing $40, was it you? You have to imagine yourself having this conversation. Here are people who are financially stressed. Like you said, one is about to become homeless. One of them is using drugs. Can you imagine that if they're already in a stressed, probably not feeling loved situation, can you imagine that if you said, Mom's missing $40, do you know anything about the missing money, that any of them would feel more loved and would be likely to say, why yes, it was me. There's just no imaginable possible yield here. So it's virtually unimaginable that the thief, because the thief would be at the bottom of the heap as far as feeling love. The thief isn't going to say it was me. And even if the person that you asked didn't steal it, the people you're describing don't sound very full. And so, they're not going to be flattered at being asked. So you're going to lose from the people who didn't steal it. You're going to lose from the person who did steal it. You're going to lose by asking. So why ask? No win in asking them. If you don't ask, at least you've had a good experience with all those who attended. So what do you do with your mother? Well, if you tell your mother that you asked, and then you don't find out who took it, you haven't won. You're not going to win by asking. If you tell her that you didn't ask, and you explain to her why, and say, Mom, all that really matters is that we had a great gathering at your house. It was $40, which is probably the price of, a small portion of the meal that she prepared. So Mom, I'm really sorry that it happened. What can I do for you? How do you feel about it? How are you doing with it? I regret that it happened, but I sure enjoyed the time I spent with you. Instead of leaping to some quick fix solution like, well, I'll give you the $40 back. It's not really the point, is it? Just talk to her about how much you enjoyed the time that you spent together. And aren't we glad we all got together? And whoever took the $40, maybe even, must have needed it pretty bad, huh? And eventually, sure hope that whoever it is, maybe will eventually come forward. Or, do we even know where it went? Maybe it was. We don't know. It's not the point. The point is that we end up feeling loved as a result of this, and that we care about the welfare of whoever it was. That's all we'll really get out of this, is whether we feel loved and happy. So, what do you think, Mom? What do you want to do here? Do you need to talk about it some more? What can I do for you? What do you need to talk about until you feel happy as a result about this? Just explore it with her. Don't tell her how to feel about it. Just kind of explore some options with her until eventually she works it out with you. Or she may choose to be mad about it. Don't know. You can't make her feel anything. But asking people who stole it, that's going to be a low yield. Here's a viewer who says this. Here's a thought for you, he says. Sometimes I think the peace that I have from being by myself comes from running from all the people on the field of death. This is somebody who's been doing real love for a couple of years. They're all drowning, and I know I can't fix them, so I just let them drown. But hanging out, because hanging out with a bunch of drowning people is no fun. I do it sometimes, but I mostly just sit and listen. Even then, I begin to tune them out because all I hear is blah, blah, blah. This person did that, and blah, 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 if only blah, blah, blah. I can almost understand why the wise man in the story of the Wart King was a hermit that lived on top of a mountain. I struggle with engaging with all these people. Any suggestions? Well, I can remember a period of time in my own life when I was learning about real love and finding people to be with who could accept and love me, when I didn't really want to be around anybody but unconditionally loving people, which really limits the number of people you can be around. Because, for a while, when you begin to identify imitation love and getting or protecting behaviors, you start to find people who engage in those behaviors you can go through a period of time when you can find people like that just kind of distracting. In certain moods, almost annoying. It's just more peaceful not to be around people who are doing that. Because the stories do sound, to a certain extent, pretty similar. people are just empty and afraid and empty and afraid, and really, in great measure, they just keep repeating the same behaviors. And then, after a while, it's like, after you get enough real love in your life, you just can't watch people keep doing that without wanting to share with them some of what you have. Where you want to help them, you want to love them, you want to help pull drowning people, not pull, because you'd never pull somebody against their will if they didn't want to, but to help people out of the pool. It's fun. It's fun to love people. And so rather than hear blah, blah, blah so much, you hear the cries of drowning people. You hear their pain. And so it becomes fun to reach out to people. Now that doesn't mean that you want to spend all day, every day, listening to the same stories. You still want to be around people who are capable of being loving. It's still fun to get filled up. It's still fun to be around people who just get it. And so you find kind of a balance between being around loving people and then sharing what you have with those who just need it. So you don't have to be around people who are on the field of death. You don't have to do anything. But eventually, it's just fun to be around people that you can offer some measure of light and love to. It will actually expand your life and bring greater joy to you as you do that. It's just very enriching too. It's not a drag. It's just helps you grow to do that. But don't do it until you're ready to do it. No sense of obligation to it. One step further, you continue, and you say, you get to another issue I have, and that is manipulation. When you tell anyone else how great they are doing or that they have a nice outfit on, how do I know that I'm not just manipulating people to get them to like me? That type of manipulation got me where I was in the first place. It's easy to manipulate people, so most of the time I choose not to do it. I can offer kind words and I need nothing from them, but it still sometimes feels like manipulation. What's the difference between real love and manipulation? I guess you can say that I also run from manipulation. It's really pretty easy to tell the difference between manipulation and loving people because it's how you feel. If I say to somebody, you look nice, and I'm manipulating them, I expect something in return. I expect them to like me when I say that. I expect them to smile at me when I say that. I expect something from it. Whereas if I say that looks nice and I'm feeling unconditionally loving, it's just a piece of information. If I just pass on something that they may have been interested in knowing. For example, for one thing, in real love, I almost never say that. I almost never refer to somebody's physical appearance because, gosh, what does that have to do with loving them unconditionally? At all. Ever. Why would I ever comment on how you look physically? Now, for example, when people lose weight, it's kind of crazy making. And you say to somebody, wow, you really look nice when they've lost 20 pounds. Well, what does that say about how they looked before, when they were 20 pounds heavier? You looked like a fat pig? That really is what you're saying, isn't it? That's the other half of that. We all take that as such a huge compliment. Gosh, you're really looking great now that you're thin. I didn't tell you before that you really look like a fat pig because I thought I might hurt your feelings. But that's what you're saying. We forget that that's the other half of a compliment about weight loss. So I think it's kind of dangerous there are some dangers, might I say, about complimenting people for their physical appearance, because then when they don't go to the trouble of doing whatever it is that you're complimenting them for, whether it be their hair or their clothes or their whatever, then what are you saying about their appearance when they haven't gone to that trouble? I just virtually never notice these little things that people do to look good because it just doesn't matter to me. But I will say things to people about like what they've done. So like somebody gives a talk or somebody does a performance, and I'll say to them, rather than just, "Oh, nice job," which isn't very informative. So I will say, "I thought it was very effective the way that you used the metaphor of the tree." That's useful information. I thought it was useful the way that you used the metaphor of the tree and linked it to this and this and this. I thought it really inspired me to blank. Well, gosh, now the speaker has some information that they can use, as opposed to, "Wow, really nice job." Or, "Gee, you're a really good speaker." How does that help them? So the way that we praise people really makes a difference. If you tell them that they're a really good person, "Gee, I'm really proud of you," you haven't told them anything. You haven't given them anything they can use. Whereas if you give them some positive feedback that tells them something, that takes some thought on your part. And it gives them something that they can now use to improve a future performance, make it more useful for them in the future. That's a meaningful interchange. And so you ask, what's the difference between manipulating and not? Give them something useful. Here's a woman who says, "I'm in a relationship with a man who believes, because of the Bible," he says, "that men are just superior to women. So he pretty much ignores my opinion on everything. He decides what we do, what we talk about, where we go, everything. I give my input, and then he just decides. So I wonder why I stay in this relationship." All I conclude is you must believe him. You must believe him that women are inferior, or you wouldn't stay with him. So specifically, you must believe that you are inferior. I mean, here you are in a relationship with a man who's telling you with his behavior, now he's using the Bible as an excuse, he's telling you that you're inferior to him. He's insulting you, and he's controlling you with a lie, but whatever lie he uses is, irrelevant. But he's controlling you and insulting you, and you're allowing it. Well, the only way you could allow that is if you believe what he's telling you, that you're less than he is. So, I would suggest you examine the lie, that you would examine your beliefs. Are you inferior to him? If you need help, honey, ask some people who really see you. But you must have been told from the time you were just a little girl that you are inferior. My guess is that you were told not just that you were inferior to men, but that you were an inferior human being. And that you were not sufficiently loved, or you wouldn't be buying this foolishness. So what's the way out of that? You need to spend some time around some people who really care about you, because people who genuinely care about you will correct this kind of notion that you're getting and let you know what your real worth is. Then once you get an idea of what you're really worth, it would be hard to imagine that you would stay in a relationship with somebody who tells you that you're not worth much. But you had to have been told this, thousands of times, long before you got in a relationship with this man. And all of those people prepared you for a relationship with a guy like this. This isn't this guy's fault. They all prepared you for him, and then you just fell into this. You were an easy mark for this guy. So learn to tell the truth about yourself. Learn more about real love, and then be around people who can finally convince you of the truth of what you're really worth, that you're worth loving. Next viewer says, my husband and I disagree about politics, and I get so angry. How can he possibly be so stupid on the political issues of our country? Since you asked that in the form of a question, let me answer it. He can be so stupid because he has different genes, different upbringing, different fears, different needs than you do. He has different eyes. He's a different person than you. He's not stupid. He's just different. And if anybody's stupid here, it's the person who's failing to see that he's just different. The problem here is that rather than seeing him as different, you're calling him stupid just because he disagrees with you, sweetie. Goodness. Is everybody going to be stupid the rest of their life just whenever they disagree with you? So it's just a suggestion. I realize that if I make a suggestion, I may be stupid also. And there have been many who have told me that I'm stupid. But these discussions with him are wonderful opportunities. Great opportunities to get to know him. Isn't that what you really want? Isn't that like the whole idea of having a discussion with your husband? The idea of having a discussion with your husband is not to win one more person over to the whatever party you belong to. I mean, who cares? Who gives a hoot whether you win one more person over to the Republican or Democratic Party? Who cares? What matters is that the two of you become closer. So what if, as he expresses his stupid opinion about something, what if you were to say, so tell me why you believe like that? How did you come to believe like that? Tell me what there was about your life that caused you to believe like that. Who else in your family believed like that? What about your upbringing caused you to believe like that? Who else do you know that believes like that? What do those people believe on that subject? Blah, blah. I mean, make it your life's mission to come to understand his point of view. And what will happen is you're going to come to better understand your stupid husband. The cool thing is you're going to get closer to him. That's what's going to be wonderful. Get to know him instead of trying to change his opinion. His opinion's really kind of irrelevant. It's him you want to get to know. That's going to be just magical. Whereas changing his opinion is kind of selfish and intolerant on your part. It'll just lead to arguments. Well, you've already described it. It's led to anger and division and contention and disharmony and separation. Are you liking this? Clearly you're not. Whereas getting to know him can't be worse. And I can tell you, you really work to get to know this man. You don't have to change political parties, darling. But why not form, at least in your family, a party of one, at least emotionally? This is very fun stuff. You'll like that. My son is a picky eater and refuses to eat almost anything but a few items. Then he takes hours to finish dinner. It's a source of frustration every day. Well, so, this son, by the way, is 4 years old. So why make it a source of frustration? I mean, so he's a little OC, crazy 4-year-old kid. Do you think that when he's, 16 years old and going out on a date, do you think he's going to be a little crazy, limited eating kid when he's going out with his girlfriend and look like a fool? He's going to get over this foolishness. So you want to be sure that he doesn't grow up stunted. So do some calculations. Make sure he takes a multivitamin every day so that he doesn't get kwashiorkor and beriberi, and make sure that he gets sufficient essential amino acids per day. Look it up, which means that he gets sufficient proteins, but balance of proteins, not just one kind. You can't just have beans, period. There's proteins in beans, but there's not sufficient balance of essential amino acids. And then leave it alone. Why turn this kid's life into a living hell over insisting that he get exactly the balanced diet that you think he's got to have? You want a child who grows up remembering that his mama loved him, and not necessarily that he had exactly the number of green leafy vegetables that you thought he ought to have. I know a kid should have a balanced diet. Yes, he should. And then bit by bit, perhaps you can introduce once a week, you can set out a green leafy vegetable or a list of green leafy vegetables gradually as he feels more loved by you. So listen, gradually you can set out a list of green leafy vegetables and say, okay, listen, picky eater, the picky eater boy. From this list of green leafy vegetables, you have to pick out one. And so this week you're going to eat a serving from one of this list. And let him pick from it. And then eventually you can expand it to two. And then you get the point, bit by bit. And then a fruit. And then... But to just every day go into this trauma with this poor kid, and insist on this balanced diet and all these things that you make the kid do, is it worth it? Is it worth having this diet that you create for the kid and then have a kid not feel unconditionally loved by his mother? I don't know. Pretty heavy price, when you could, just make sure that he's got enough amino acids and fatty acids and vitamins and have a happy kid. There's more things than just green leafy vegetables in life. So I suggest you at least contemplate that possibility. And for one thing, don't turn it into an endless source of frustration and end up with a kid who's just got a healthy body and a stunted spirit. So, just a thought. Because in the end, as you know, it's always about real love. And a kid has to have a healthy soul. So, let us all remember that until we gather again a week from today. And I look forward to seeing you. So we'll see you a week from today. See you then. Bye-bye.